Hey everyone, it's me, Amrita again. So, as you all know, we're having DSC Kita Hack 2020 today. These 2 days, we'll be having it. And we've got Dara here with us. She's one of our mentors. Um, she is truly an inspiring person. I remember my first time attending DevFest as a CS student. She was the first female speaker there, and I was really, really inspired. I felt like that's when I realized, okay, I'm not at the wrong place. I guess there are people, there are women there as well. So truly, you've been a inspiring person for me, like a mentor all this while. And it's really awesome to have you here speaking for our event today. So Dara, I'll pass it over to you. You can start your talk.
Sure, thanks. And that's amazing to hear back about you being part of it. So in today's talk, I'll be kind of sharing my insights about hackathons in general and the tips and tricks I've developed over time participating in several of them. I think we're just gonna pass this through because it was prepared for like an actual audience, but this is live, so something new for me. So this should be changed actually. This is more than 30 already. Basically, a little bit about myself. I've been joining quite a number of hackathons over the past few years. Only after like 10th of them, I started winning. So that's where the kind of like the motivation came from, is when I was like challenged and motivated to win. That's why my persistence was there, and I was like joining until I get there. And then that's when the time it was actually quite interesting, because in the picture you can see 3 to 1. It was actually consecutive. So the hackathons I was joining consecutively from 3 to 1 was actually there. So that's kind of the interesting part of it. But before that, they were mostly losses. And then there were 15, actually more than that already, around 20 events as a speaker. I don't have the actual numbers yet, but I do save it in my Excel sheet. I just didn't update it in a while. So that will probably be broadcasted somewhere. So enough about me. I would probably kind of share with you guys about how do you actually find out about hackathons. So the first thing first, of course, is Google. I mean, you have to Google around. You have to kind of see, especially right now with coronavirus happening, all of the hackathons have been shifted online, so you can check from the online hackathons as well. And then probably I'm doing here a good tip for a good promotion for Darren and Tien is about Hackathon Kaki. This is specifically, I guess, for Malaysian people, but not only restricted to Malaysians. It's just that the major kind of events are happening in Malaysia for Hackathon Kaki. So therefore, but they do share like Japanese hackathons. Some of them were from Singapore. So that's kind of the interesting group to be at, and the community there is quite supportive. So if you were to have questions or doubts, or if you're lost, you'll probably find the support there, and again, connections as well. So how do you choose? The funny part is that in 2018, majority of the hackathons and events I joined so far were kind of useless in a sense, and not to say useless, but didn't really provide the value that I was looking for. So in 2019, I've developed this number of things that I'll look for whenever I choose hackathons, to not to kind of like waste my time on something that is not going to provide me the value. The first thing first that I look at is, of course, money. The price. If the price is like 400 ringgit or something, that's not worth of my time, of course. And if the money is, I would say, like if I have 5 people in a team, and then that's like 400 divided by 5, it's nothing. So that's kind of the filter that I put up to myself, because it's not only that the money you can spend or whatever, it's also motivating you to move on and push further. So in hackathons, there is a lot of times that you'll be like stuck, or demotivated or loss of confidence, or you're not making it on time. So in that sense, money kind of was one of the push-throughs and motivations that was there for me, especially in Malaysian Developers Day when we won the 2,000 USD dollars as like team of 4. The next thing is organizers. Organizers is quite important because there were quite a number of hackathons. I wouldn't call the names here, but you probably will be able to experience it yourself. That were not as good. So the food was not good. The location that they chose was not great, and the whole organization was messed up. We didn't know what are the categories, what's happening. So the organizers here are quite important because they are the ones who are going to provide you constant feedback about what's going on, how will that next thing happen, how the judges are going to judge you, who are those judges, and all these things are coming from organizers. So if you see like Google as organizers, or like a big organizations like Magic or AT&T for Malaysia Developers Day, you should probably join. But if you see some unknown kind of organizers, you should double check. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. It's just that they're not known. So probably you have to check on their background and history, and probably decide from there whether you want to spend your weekends on that or not. The next is location. So in a sense that I always kind of converted to money stream again. So let's say if I live in KL and the hackathon is in Cyberjaya, I would probably either find a friend who has a car because I don't drive, or if the hackathon is kind of low cost, and again, organizers are not so good. So if the location is not good either for me, I'm probably not gonna see the value in wasting my 60 ringgits going there, 60 ringgits going back, and then going back and forth. So yes, there's gonna be, of course, cases that you have to go back and forth. So the location is quite important. But I guess for online hackathons, you wouldn't have to bother about that as much. Then the next thing is free food. Again, for online hackathons, probably not the best thing to have, but once this is all over, I hope it will be over. These are the things that I would look up to, is the fact that they provide food, because when you hack, it's not about even the fact that they're free or not. It's the fact that you don't have to worry about it. So whenever I'm hacking, I'm in that mood, I'm in that focus, and whenever there is food involved, I'm like, I just need something to fill my stomach, and that's it, and go on. But if I were to kind of take myself out of that focus and then thinking, oh, where should I go? What should I eat? In that sense, it's not the best thing to have, because it's wasting your brain resources on something that is not important. So in that sense, free food is a good thing to have. And then the topic. So there were some times that the topic was too broad that I can't even focus, or the topic contradicted the fact that they're actually looking for something else. And that happened a lot, especially with like new organizations that just happen to start this thing. So in that sense, always like look at the topic. If that's something is interesting for you, for example, like I was interested in IoT, I would go for most of the IoT hackathons. I was interested in virtual reality, I would go for virtual reality hackathons. So topic is pretty important. And then the next thing is check with my calendar. So as you can see, my calendar is quite full. Usually that's how it looks like. In that sense, I usually check with my calendar, check that I'm not contradicting with anything else, check if I can actually do it, and then only I do it, because I'm also like working, I'm also going for other things, I have other commitments as well. So if I were to not kind of check on them, because I usually forget, my brain is not as strong to remember it all, so I usually have my calendar for that as well. So since it's already started, it's probably not going to be the best thing to mention what do you do before, but I think it will be useful for your future hackathons as like something that you probably might work on once this is done. So I wrote it before in my Medium blog as well, but I'll talk this through in a bit more details, I guess. Is you have to find a teammate. So what you can do before the hackathon, you don't have to actually hack this whole thing beforehand. That'll be like too obvious. But finding teammates is something that is still open, and most of the hackathons, some of them are actually having some restrictions on that end, saying we're going to form the teams on that day itself, the organizers themselves. So in that sense, you don't have much of opportunity to meet your teammates. But if they do allow you, I would suggest to do that, because that's the people you're going to work with. I've seen many teams are just leaving hackathons just because they don't have they don't have that agreement in the team, so everyone is just arguing with one another, not being able to decide what they're going to actually build, what they're going to actually use. Some are saying this, some are saying that, and then nothing is being built. So in order to avoid that, find the teammates beforehand, and primarily try to focus on some diversity in the team. So that should be some speaker, business person, that should be the coder, that should be the designer, and like those are the people that should be in the team for sure, to provide the best kind of like case scenario for you to win. And then meet beforehand at least once. It should be a Skype call or like over dinner. Right now it's not advisable, so Skype call it is. And kind of discuss it through. You don't have to build it itself. You can have the ideas that you might think of the topic that you've been provided beforehand, and then try to brainstorm it with your team members, because the diversity, again, that is being mentioned before, is going to help you to look at the problem in different angles and different perspectives, and will kind of provide the best value from it. And you guys will be able to have different ideas and different perspectives, and that will help you to kind of move forward and think of the ideas as well. So the third point is kind of related to the second, is think of the idea beforehand. Thinking of the idea beforehand is just gonna help you not to waste time on the day to actually brainstorm the ideas, because that's kind of a lengthy process, and throughout the day you might be too stressed or too kind of like focus too distracted by some other things, and not gonna think about the idea thoroughly. And then at the end of the hackathon, you'll be like, oh, why didn't I think about that? So in order to avoid all of this, you kind of have to think about the idea beforehand if the topic is given. Some of the hackathons don't give the topics. They only release the topic on the day. So if that's the case, yeah, you probably have to align this into your day one. And then research and feasibility. So the thing about hackathons is the hack. So you don't have to specifically know the tech that you're going to use. There were quite a number of times that I've learned the tech on the day, on the hackathon, to actually build that thing. But before I actually do that, I always do the research, and I always suggest to do the research for others, because you kind of have to check whether it's doable or not, whether that tech is actually integratable or not with whatever stack you guys are deciding to use. So that is also kind of looking into the numbers, research on how big is the problem that you're trying to solve, like come up with some rough numbers for your business person later on to kind of discuss this through when they're pitching. And then come up with the rough plan and choose a leader. So these two are coming together. Choosing a leader is not necessarily kind of important step, but it's also it kind of helps you to identify who is going to be having the final vote, so that you all are aligned with it. And the reason why we won that NASA hackathon at that time is because we were all aligned with our rough plan, with our roles. There was an AI guy that was doing the AI things. There was this speaker business guy, and there was me who is doing the tech side as well as integrating the team together. So I was more of a leader in that team at that point of time. But there were times I was just leaving the leadership role to somebody more experienced. Like I usually leave it up to Tian to kind of decide because he's more experienced. He has like 50 more hackathons to join. So in that sense, you probably kind of have to think about the experience perspective, about the leadership skills as well, and then choose the leader, and then come up with the rough plan on what you guys all are going to be doing. So that will be responsibility of each team member to actually think of what you guys are going to do on the day. And then what happens on the first day, which is today? Talk to people, judges, mentors about your idea. So that's great that you're going to be having a diverse team which is been discussed before, but you still might miss out on something. So again, coming back to that NASA hackathon, we the team of 3 had been very diverse in our ideas and our brainstorming, and our idea was quite good, I would say, but not as impactful. So that impact thing was something that we kind of forgot to mention and to begin with. And one of the mentors that we've been talking to advised us to actually have that impact in our ideas so that we have a stronger case. And that kind of opened our eyes. We were like thinking, why didn't we think about it? So that example kind of shows why you need to talk to judges, mentors, and people around you. You don't have to disclose your idea fully if you're talking to the other teammates, and I would probably suggest you not to, because they might steal it, or they might just be like stealing some of your features as well. So you better not. But if there are mentors and judges there, then probably you should. Then take your sleepy bags. Yes, you won't make it on time. So that's probably in online hackathons, is that you kind of have to be prepared to the fact that you won't be able to make it on time to begin with, because at the beginning it all sounds great, it all sounds cool, you will be able to align and everything, but towards the end of the day you'll be realizing that you won't making it on time, some features are not working, some tech is not there, and actually being prepared for it mentally is something that I would suggest doing, because you wouldn't sleep most probably. I don't usually sleep on hackathons. That's how I read. Then draft a plan and have checks on every few hours. So the previous plan that you guys had, make it more solid, make it more synchronized between one another, so that probably every 2 to 3 hours you have some checkups on each and every one of you. And if somebody else is stuck, and then probably try to find somebody else that could unstuck you, or try to help one another if that's the case, and then move on and move on. So sometimes in, like, for example, in MYDD hackathon, we had to drop one of the features because it was just too slow when we tried to integrate it with OpenCV to actually recognize the car plates. So we use some other external APIs for that. So that's kind of the pivots that you have to keep making while planning. So that's the point of about getting stuck and stop doing it. You don't have time to it. And then that's kind of like my favorite, don't do login pages. I know it's probably kind of obvious, but I still see people doing it, and I still see people presenting it, and I'm like guys, it's not gonna give you any chances of winning, because you're wasting your time. Like, anyone can do the login page, and it's not necessarily about your idea, it's just login page. It's useless for judges, so don't do that. And then the next thing is fake it till you make it. So you don't have to come up with like actually workable things. So you kind of have to focus on the main features that your app has, prioritize them, and then if you have time, which probably you wouldn't, then only focus on the other, like, good to have but not must have things. In that sense, sometimes you might not even be able to finish the must have things. So for that, probably you will be thinking of making it there or mentioning it's there, but being, I don't know, it's up to you guys, being transparent or not with the judges that you actually build it or not. But that's kind of the case. If that's kind of the case, the judge, it's good to still kind of mention your core ideas there. So the next day, on second day, what happens is we usually stop coding 1 to 2 hours beforehand, because, I mean, what could you do in 1 or 2 hours? Or we just stop doing the kind of the core features out there and probably do some external ones, help our presenter to prepare for the presentation, which is the next point. And that is actually quite important, because I remember when me and my teammate who was supposed to present, we were just having this long-lasting for like an hour before our pitch to actually think about how would we present this idea to the judges so that it's kind of like relevant, it's strong, and it's catchy. So in most of the hackathons recently that I've been doing, I'm trying to make it as a storytelling, to kind of showcase like 2 users talking to one another. I mean, just try to innovate. There is no boundaries to that. And then the next thing is validate your findings. Once again, with mentors and judges, it's kind of a check. So probably there were some cases that you wouldn't be able to achieve things. And I guess it's important to look up for judges and mentors and ask them if that's okay. It's not necessarily that they're gonna give you anything useful in terms of tech, but they might be giving you some useful advice in terms of your presentation. How would you want to present all of the things that you've built so far? So in that sense, I would still talk to judges even on the next day. Then the next thing is simplify, simplify. So that's, I guess, the most important one for me personally, and that's the main reason why I was not winning the first, I think, 10 hackathons were the ones I was joining. I was like chasing the rockets to the moon kind of ideas. So I would be doing something like Kinect, virtual reality, Google Daydream, everything together, but then not being able to complete it and not being able to showcase it and not being able to prove it with numbers. And at the end of the day, judges didn't even understand what I was trying to build, because one, I was communicating it good enough, and two is I was overcomplicating it to the point that they were like thinking that it's not doable to launch it the next day. So simplifying is very important, because your judges are most probably going to be from different backgrounds, like investors or I don't know, CTOs, CEOs. So they might not have the clear idea of what tech you're using, so they wouldn't give you credit for that. Again, don't do login pages. I won't stop like repeating this one. And then again, fake it till you make it. So on second day, it's gonna be more or less clear on what you have and what you don't. So in that sense, you kind of have to decide on how you're gonna present on what you don't. If that's important. If that's not important, just leave it. If it's important, then try to at least showcase it in the image. Try to at least record some videos. And by the way, for your pitching, if you have time, please record it beforehand, your demo, because on the presentation itself, there might be something wrong with the camera, something wrong with the live stream or whatever. And at the end of the day, you wouldn't be able to showcase your idea, and judges will be like, what did you build? So that's going to be one of the advices that I would put here as well. And then how to prepare to pitch. So the pitching is as important as the coding part, because if you don't do the actual pitching well, then whatever you've been building so far in 24 hours is useless. So I've seen quite a number of people who have built like amazingly good tech, but were so bad in presenting that it didn't even make it to top 10 teams. So that's kind of the important part of it, because the way that you pitch it is the way that you sell it to your judges, and the way that they kind of have to be able to visualize whatever you're building. And that's not easy, because again, they're from different backgrounds for sure. So the first thing first is, of course, problem statement. There might be one or two. Don't overwhelm it by putting too many. We were jumping back and forth in our NASA hackathon between having the air pollution or water pollution in mind. So one of the great advices that we had at that time from one of the mentors is to focus on one. Because we focused on one, it was more clear, it was easier to present, and it didn't take us too much time. So problem statement should be one or at max two. Then the findings. Findings are necessary, because you kind of have to prove that your idea is doable. So the findings are there for you to prove that it's doable. And then how your solution is going to solve that problem. That solving thing is actually your demo time. So usually we would do the business model first, and then we'll present the solution, or vice versa. It depends on how you guys are actually going to do that. But at the end of the day, two of them should be there. The demo and the business model should be there. So in business model, you have to show them the money, how much money you're going to save. I know we're tech people. I know we don't think about money. I know we're thinking about all the cool tech out there, how great it is, how I've been there. I know that how it feels. But the money is the kind of, I would say, the most crucial thing that they want to see as judges. And if you don't show them the money, then probably you're not going to win for sure. So the next thing is the architecture. That one was kind of like interesting part, because usually you don't have to present it, as well as findings. But again, recently I kind of find out that findings is kind of important. But architecture was on AWS Hackathon. So we didn't win the first place, which was about going to Sri Lanka, Jakarta. I forgot where we were supposed to go. But the second prize was just a speaker. So you see the difference between first and second. And the main reason why we didn't win is because we didn't have the architecture. And I was like, what? You didn't even write it in the judging criteria that you need to see that architecture on the pitching. So probably you would want to have that as one of your slides, and again talk to your judges on actually if it's important to showcase that or not. If that's not, then leave it. You don't have to do it. But if it is, probably there is going to be a solution architect sitting out there and thinking, oh, I want to see some architecture there, which was the case for us in AWS Hackathon. So in that case, please do. And then check your hardware if your hardware works well. So that is something that, again, I've seen quite a number of people doing it, is where there is a chance given for each team before the actual pitch to check on their hardware, to check on their wires, whether it's presentable or not. And some of the teams just ignore it and don't go and check. And then when they present, they have some issues. So leave it to one of those people, like the speaker that is supposed to pitch your idea. Let him go or her go to check on whether or not that hardware is workable with your laptop or whatever you're presenting, your mobile app. Even if it's mobile app, it's even more important to actually check it on the actual day whether it's working with the actual hardware or not. And then again, fake it till you make it. So during the pitch, if there is something, if the judges ask you something you might not know for sure, clarify. If it still doesn't make sense, try to kind of adjust it to the answer, like whatever your idea it is. Because in some cases, if you say just no or I don't know, that's a bad impression on the judges already. They would kind of minus all the points from you if you were just to say I don't know. Try to answer with at least something, anything, and try to provide some value into it. So like in numbers again. And then what happens after? That's kind of like the important case where people just leave it as it is, leave the hackathon and be like either sad or happy, whatever, but not do the follow-ups. Follow-ups are really important. And I would suggest doing this because that's kind of got me to the point that I could identify my mistakes and learn from them. So sharing is very important. You kind of have to share. If you don't like sharing, I don't know what else. Like it's good for your portfolio. It's good for your resume. It's good for people to know that you're actually into all of this tech. So the next time they are joining the hackathon, they'll invite you. So that kind of the idea, the persona in their mind about you, that's kind of the way you wire it is. Because whenever people think about me, they think about some serial hackathoner, speaker, some passionate person that is passionate about tech. So the way I do that and the way I kind of portray that persona is by sharing whatever I've been through. At the beginning, I was sharing whether I win or lose, whatever I was sharing. But then later on, with the number of hackathons I was joining in, it will be a bit of a spamish kind of content. So I was only sharing whenever I win, which is a stronger case. But at the beginning, if you haven't yet built up your portfolio, share whatever learnings you've had, share whom you met on the hackathon, share the inspiring pitch that you thought would be interesting to share with your connections. So build it up, build that portfolio that will be then useful for you. The sharing should happen on each and every platform you have. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the ones is where you find a job. And then make connections on the day. So I know that most of the tech guys out there are introverted and don't really want to talk and whatever, but making connections is as important as probably sharing afterwards, is because those are the people that probably you're gonna be seeing every freaking damn hackathon, because I've been seeing the same people almost on each hackathon that I've been joining or each tech event. So making connections is important, and that kind of gives you the idea of what could be improved. Because you don't have to necessarily come to them and say, hey, let's make a connection. No, you would probably be interested in their persona and think, oh, you guys did a great job in presenting. That idea actually I had in my mind, and blah, blah, blah. So those are the kind of the first starters for your connections to happen. Make it flawless, make it seamless, so that the people don't even have to think about you as like some bragger who is just there for making the appearance. No, you should be smart about it and trying to find a way to kind of make those connections seamlessly. And then those connections are actually going to help you to also feedback on your presentation, which is, again, asking for feedback is important. So the next point is listening to other teams' presentations. I would say it's important because that way you will learn what could be the best and the worst kind of situation of your presentation. So probably that kind of helped me in terms of understanding what could have been done better in my presentation. What could have been added more so that the idea sounds more solid and more interesting. So I remember there was a time that the team had this kind of the touchy, interesting story about their grandfather not being able to hear, and then they build this thing that is about trying to get them to see all these things and launch the rocket or something. So those are the kind of the touchy points that I was thinking, oh, that's actually a great thing to have. So it's also, again, learning and finding out what could have been done better. The next thing is asking for feedback. So asking for feedback is like important even if you win the first place. You might be the first place, you might be the winner of the first place in this room, but you might be the last one in the other room. So asking for feedback from your judges still is important, because that kind of helps you to move and being able to grow as a professional, because that will also provide you some feedback, some interesting insights that you could have done better. So whenever you probably win or lose, doesn't matter, go to your judges, go to your mentors, ask them what I could have done better. What do you think could have been done better? Take pictures, the next one. Those pictures are going to be supplementary as kind of the proof that you've been there whenever you're posting on something. So if you were to, like, let's say, win the hackathon, you're posting about winning that hackathon, the picture of you actually winning is going to be a good kind of a supporting point there, especially like on Instagram, you have to share that picture. Then spend your money wisely. That one is kind of, I guess, if you win, you probably would want to try to invest or renovate, or invest in some tech that you were wanting to buy for so long. So that's the point about spending money wisely. And then what do you do with the prize money? That's I get all the time, I think. So that's pretty much the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Right here, I'm flattered and was interested to join this kind of like live streaming, because I've been doing it before for business, but first doing it with Google so far for hackathons. So yeah, thank you very much. What is that?